John Warkentin here from Michael's Camera. Today we've got a special guest with us. It's Sean Ellwood, Senior Product Specialist from Sony Australia.
Hey,
So thank you so much for joining us. We've got a big event planned here at Michael's Camera tonight. It is the official Melbourne launch of the brand new Sony A9. And as my colleague Matt Clulo says, it's the digital SLR killer. So with those sort of key words in mind, tell us what makes the A9 the digital SLR killer in Sony's playbook.
Well, look, it's really a completely new kind of camera. The SLR, we've been constantly pushing forward with SLRs to kind of overcome, the technical hurdles that are in place there. So, mirrors getting faster moving, so there's less viewfinder blackout, and shutters getting more durable and getting faster, and all of this. But fundamentally, we're still dealing with mechanical cameras with digital sensors. And with the A9, we're really taking a big step away from that and working to create a truly digital electronic camera. So inside of it, the new sensor, 20 times faster to read out than our previous full frame image sensors. And that is really at the heart of what makes this camera different. That's what enables things like 20 frames per second, silent operation, no viewfinder blackout, all of that stuff.
And there must be basically two image pipelines, because it's not only recording all these images, but it's feeding live video to either the eyepiece or the rear LCD. And of course, there's no blackout. Absolutely. So, I mean, we've got, and with active focus overlays, it's telling us exactly what it's doing when we're using it. So it's really unheard of.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just because of, normally there's a real overhead in terms of getting information off the camera sensor and then to the processor. So with the A9, just as a baseline, it's reading the image sensor 60 times per second. And whether that's to capture an image, whether that's to read autofocus information, to update the video feed, that's just constantly happening. Whether you're shooting, whether you're just looking around, it's ongoing.
And earlier this week, DxO just announced its dynamic range analysis of the camera. So all those worries are now put aside. It's an impressively great dynamic range sensor. So, all the armchair pundits are always complaining about everything and everything. Oh, but there's got to be a sacrifice somewhere. Well, it really looks like there's next to no sacrifices with this. This is a new style of camera.
Yeah, and that's the intention. We see the 9 as being, a high-performance camera on any level. We do still see the A7R Mark II and the A7S Mark II as being leaders in their fields of specialization.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, we've got high res on one hand and ultra high sensitivity on the other, and this is right in the Goldilocks sort of just right moment, but then nails it with high frame rate.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a camera for everybody here.
That's the idea. Yeah, and for someone who just wants across the board high performance, the A9 of course delivers to the maximum on all of those sort of core features. But if you want to specialize what you're doing, then you have the A7R and the A7S for those particular areas. Mm-hmm.
So now Sony, of course, got into the camera game with the acquisition of Minolta, and so we're barely a decade into that, aren't we?
Just about a decade on. Okay. Yeah, that's right.
And then APS-C mirrorless cameras, the A6000 series. Well, I guess there was the NEX series before that. What are we looking at? Are 7 or 8 years into that now?
Probably.
Or maybe
probably 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the A7 full frame, which of course is nobody else has full frame in mirrorless. The A7 series. Now that hit us. I think that's still less than 3 years ago.
Yeah. So the 7s, our Mark 1s, we launched about 3 or 4 years ago now, and the 7 Mark IIs have been with us for a year.
And so there's been 6 in that line, full frame, over really just a 3-year period. So that's an incredible amount of cameras released. And as we well know, the big players in the sports and action digital SLR game, it's a new camera for every summer games. So it's a 4-year cycle for those things.
Yeah.
So in less time, you guys have now, what's this, the 7th full frame mirrorless product?
That's right.
And we've still got 3 years before Tokyo.
Yeah.
So this is my prediction, and I'm not asking for corporate secrets in any way, shape, or form, but Sony's taken a shot across the bow of the big boys in the sports action digital SLR market. And we know what they are. We don't need to mention their names. And it's obvious the Olympics are coming to Japan, and that's Sony's home country. there's got to be a lot of excitement about where this is going to go. So if this is the first in the series of sports and high performance and rugged body for this sort of thing, yet we've only 3 years into full-frame Sony cameras, mirrorless. I mean, imagine what we'll see in the next 3 years. We could be up to the 6th of the A9 series, or the 3rd or the 4th, or whatever. So Sony has just been rapidly firing cameras at us, and each one has been, you know, a nice incremental, if not great improvement over the previous. So there's a lot to be looking forward to.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, it's incredibly exciting the direction that technology is going, and you know, at Sony, because we are manufacturing the sensors which power, you know, a lot of these innovations.
Well, and power every other camera pretty well on the market.
Because we have that at the core of our business, we get to be at the leading edge of what is happening in that space. And yeah, look, I mean, you know, the A9 itself is, you know, 100% capable of being in those spaces. You know, it's ready to be trackside, to be on the field, to be in the press corps. You know, really, of course, anyone who's working professionally as a photographer wants to be 100% clear that the camera they're using is a camera they can use to get the job done, to cash a check. And so, you know, we don't expect to see every professional photographer jumping onto the A9 at the drop of a hat, but getting out here and showing what it can do. You know, we have to prove that it is 100% capable before we can expect anyone to start jumping across.
Well, I mean, nothing can happen overnight. I mean, take a look at the high end in sports photography. The length of time it took to migrate from from film to digital. I mean, that was a period of time that's actually longer again than before A7 and today. I mean, time is compressing, but still it does take a while. And but somebody who's a new professional photographer entering the market and choosing a system and a platform, well, this is a very good starting point.
Yeah, and we see that. You know, we do. People who, you know, obviously pulling people across who have a big investment and who are very set. That's difficult, and we don't expect to do that, you know, every day of the week. But absolutely, people who are getting started, people who, for one reason or another, their existing investment has gone, whether they've lost it, damaged it, whatever it happens to be. We're seeing a lot of people really seriously take a hard look at the A7 and A9 series.
Now, here's one thing that I haven't had a chance to try with it. How is this focus engine for birding? My gut tells me it's got to be spectacular.
Yeah. Well, that was something that I actually had a chance to try out. I live close to Centennial Park in Sydney, which has big, extensive wetlands. So I managed to get down there not long after we got our first sample into our hands and shoot some snakebirds down there. And it honestly blew me away. I think the moment that really was sort of the wow moment for me was tracking a little black and white bird. I don't even know what it was, but it was coming in to land from sort of out, you know, perched in the trees. And I tracked it with the 100 to 400 mil, the new lens, from maybe 30 meters away, and I'm just tracking it as it comes in. And you know, I was struggling to keep the bird in frame, you know, let alone put any particular focus area over it. But because I have that whole frame tracking with the A9,
yeah, there's 690 something,
633, yeah.
I mean, basically the whole sensor almost there.
That's right. Yeah, and it honestly made up for me not being particularly good at it, because it tracked it the whole way in, and I went up losing it when it was a meter away, you know, and it just was out of frame. I couldn't even hold it. So incredible.
I'm showing my age here. I remember the first digital sensors had less pixels than this has focus points.
I can imagine.
Yeah, we had sensors that were 64 by 64 pixels.
Wow. One of our ambassadors, Mark Ayler, he always tells the story about getting the first was a Kodak camera in a Nikon body. They basically had put a sensor in and then had a big brick that...
Yeah, hey, we've got it in the museum out here. I'll show it to you just after we finish the interview.
Great, yeah.
It's a Franken monster.
It's a whole different ballgame now, yeah. Everything's so tightly integrated now. Yeah. It's hard to imagine.
So, what does the future hold? I mean, again, no corporate secrets here, but what are we going to see? Anything that is like got some artificial intelligence maybe inside these cameras? I mean, this thing's got the ability to capture thousands of images in no time. How are we to find the needle in the haystack? I'm just itching for some sort of artificial intelligence agent in the camera that can say, well, at least the eyes were closed on these ones, so those are in the reject pile. These ones are a little softer than those ones, so that, because I tell you, it's addictive shooting at 20 frames per second. But it's a little daunting when you got to go home and look at them.
Yeah, the editing is less addictive. No, it's true. I think the processing, the in-camera processing and what the cameras can do to help you shoot and get the shot you want is absolutely, an area that is already improving out of sight. I mean, just seeing things like the eye autofocus on the A9, where it can, identify a person's eye and track that really specifically. We've had, a feature in the past where the camera would look at your shots and suggest different crops for how you might want to process it. So definitely, those sort of, at the moment, it's quite simple and very rule-based heuristics, but as we go on, there's no reason why these image processors in the camera can't do more to really help you get not just a bunch of shots, but the right shots.
Yeah, I mean, there's an immense amount of horsepower in that engine, and it's sort of not really doing too much when it's just sort of sitting there. Maybe if we can apply that power to some post-shooting decision making, I mean that's what I'm looking forward to, because I feel we need those sort of things.
And even one of the things we did when we first got these cameras was we invited some professional photographers to come and have a go with them and just sort of see how they suited the way they shoot, and also to get some pictures for ourselves. We had a selfish interest there, but one of the things that we noticed was we'd put these cameras into the hands of someone who is maybe a keen photographer but not a professional, not working for a crust with these cameras, and they would they'd pick up the camera, spend an hour with it and shoot 2,000 frames, or 3,000 frames, because it's so easy to do. But when we gave it to the pros, they were actually much more selective, and they worked with the cameras for a couple of hours, and at the end they only had maybe 800 frames a piece, which sounds like lots, but in the context of shooting with this camera, they were being selective. They knew when they were going to get the shot they wanted, and they knew when to lay off. And if the camera could help me do that, that would be great.
Now, how have you found shooting with it in complete silence?
It's really off-putting.
That's what I found. It was amazing, but it was like, I wasn't sure if I was shooting.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's the first experience people have with it. Is one of the demos I love to do is to put the camera into silent mode and hand it to someone who has no idea what I'm doing. It's kind of a mean trick, but and invite them to rattle off a bunch of shots, and of course they think it's broken or it's not doing, but of course it is. And one of the things that really impressed me when I first went to training on this camera was the fact that the engineers had anticipated that weirdness, and so they have a lot of tools built into the camera to help you understand when you're capturing a frame and when the camera is shooting and when the camera is not shooting, because honestly it would be easy to set it up so you had no idea.
Certainly, as the digital SLRs have got faster, I have found that they've just started to be louder. And whenever you watch, the news, and there's the big scrum of photographers surrounding a celebrity or a politician or whatever, it's like warfare there. I mean, it's the machine guns going off. I really think that this silent shooting is going to be a game changer for them. I can just imagine when the person who is the subject of all this attention then needs to pull that one person out of the pack and say, "Come here, we'll do some pictures of that." They might want to choose the guy who's got the camera that doesn't make any noise.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can well imagine, and there's a lot of situations where you want to take a photo, but you don't necessarily want to announce yourself.
Well, exactly. And I was thinking birding as well.
Yeah.
One blast out of a high-performance digital SLR, you've probably scared the birds and the natives away. I mean, everything's gone.
That's right. Yeah, and one of the things that we've been speaking to photographers who are looking at this camera about is using it for exactly that sort of thing, using it remotely as well. So, we can connect a radio remote to this, place it in a situation where, even having a person there at all is going to spoil the deal. You know, animals don't want to be that close to people, but you can leave your camera out there, and normally it's a one-shot deal. You know, you get that one shot and then the animal's gone. But if you can shoot silently, suddenly you can spend that much more time. Yeah, you can really expand the envelope.
And plus, the high ISO capabilities of this camera are pretty bloody good.
Absolutely.
So, you know, with a fast lens on it, I could see putting this in a camera trap and get out there and get some pictures of some elusive wildlife. That'd be a lot of fun.
It'd be great, yeah. And I mean, look, it shoots out of the box. It defaults to an auto ISO range of up to 6400. And I have to say, from my experience shooting with it, I'd have no hesitation setting that, manually if I wanted to. It'd be really fine.
Yeah. So, can we assume that there might be a family of A9s, kind of the same way there was a family of A7s, with a choose your resolution type thing, or that?
It's one of those things we haven't announced anything on that front, but of course, we're always looking at new ways to do things that will excite photographers, and we have customers who enjoy the resolution of an A7R. But find things about an A9 interesting. So, of course, we'll always be looking to see where the innovations that have gone into the A9 might be appropriate for other future.
Well, it certainly looks like Sony's banked a lot on this stack sensor technology. I mean, and of course, they're selling it into the mobile phone market. It's just got some great benefits, and it doesn't look like there's any real downside. So I think that's kind of where the future's going to be. I'd like to see that show up in a larger than 35mm sensor. I'd like to see Sony enter that market.
Right.
Really, I think a little bit more competition in medium format would be good for medium format. We already know you guys make the sensors. But it's an economies of scale thing, obviously. It's not a huge market, and Sony is targets big markets.
And one of the main criticisms of our full frame mirrorless line at first was that we didn't have a huge lens range, and for a long time we were sort of fighting on two fronts there. And we're actually, now finally in a really happy place where the full frame lens lineup is looking really solid.
Well, and you've just released the new 16 to 35, so you've got the Trinity.
That's right.
So that's there. The Trinity, in case anybody doesn't know, is the standard professional photographer likes to have a 16 to 35, f2.8 constant aperture, a 24 to 70, f2.8 constant aperture, and a 70 to 200, 2.8 constant aperture. And so that's probably 90% of the photos that a pro takes are with those three lenses. And then you start getting into this esoteric stuff with the long primes. And they existed in the original A mount, a holdover from the Minolta days, of course. But they were modified, and there were changes made, and to bring them up to digital spec.
Yep.
So hopefully we'll see some of that stuff show up in E mount, and it has to come, but it can't come overnight. I mean, there'll be with a little bit of time. But remember, TikTok, 3 years to Tokyo. I think we'll see a lot of interesting things with the Sony name on them at the Olympics.
No doubt. Yeah, and look, it's been hugely exciting because, as you know, a lot of the lenses we brought out immediately in the wake of the Minolta acquisition. There was some clear resemblances to the Minolta lenses. But now, these lenses that we're bringing out, the G Masters, the Zeisses, they're completely novel designs. The 12 to 24 that we've just released, incredibly exciting. There's no other lens like it. It's an ultra wide of that specification, but half the weight of anything else like it on the market. So, I'm excited to see what happens.
Oh, by the way, do you have one of those to show our attendees tonight?
I do, definitely.
Oh, excellent. Oh, that's really good. I haven't seen that yet. I just saw the product photography of that.
And the 16 to 35 as well.
Excellent. I did use the 100 to 400. I found it worked beautifully, and it's not that heavy.
It's not too bad.
Yeah.
It's not too bad, yeah. A little lighter than the other similar lenses, and the 16 to 35 and 12 to 24 are just even more.
Oh, that's very exciting. So I know this was kind of more of an A9 style, just a little talk about it, not really a formal interview per se, not that I really do formal interviews, I kind of just make them up as I go along here. But whenever someone who is a photographer or videographer sits down with us, I like to sort of end our interviews with a little personal story, and I call it the shot that got away. A fishing metaphor, if I might say so, about the fish that got away. So, obviously you are an imaging professional. Tell me, what about the shot that got away from your personal life? What's something you put a lot of effort into and it just didn't work out, but you might have learned a nice important lesson?
Oh, gee, wow, okay. Okay, so this is completely unrelated to the A9.
That's all right.
But yeah, okay. One of my favorite trips photographically was when I went to Borneo with my wife, and we climbed Mount Kinabalu, which is the tallest mountain on the island of Borneo. And it's a 2-day trek up, and you overnight at this sort of base camp called Laban Rata. And getting up there and looking out at this view and realizing that you're not looking up at the clouds, you're looking down at the clouds, that was really incredible. And I really, I spent the time to, take heaps of photos, of course, as you do. And one of my favorites was as the sun was setting, looking down through the clouds to the towns below, and you could see just the little lights of those towns. And I was hand holding it. This is with the original A7R, and I just pushed too hard and got too greedy with the shutter speed. And I think my takeaway is from that was like, lean on the ISO if you need it. Don't take risks. If it's gonna come out blurry, it's not gonna be usable. But a little bit of noise, you can work around it.
Well, that's a very good takeaway, because of course I suffer from the exact same problem. And I'm just used to the early cameras that had terrible high ISO performance, and it's hard to rewire my brain.
Absolutely, yeah. You fear the noise and that ugly grain,
Yeah.
but then when you printed it, half the time it doesn't even matter. No one would ever notice.
And of course now, these bodies with the 5-axis image stabilization, it just buys you so much. I mean,
if only.
handheld becomes tripod almost. It's incredible. You can, with the shots you'll be able to take off. Well, that's excellent. I love your stories. It was really great to talk to someone with some real intimate knowledge of the Sony product line, and of course the brand new A9 here that we've got in front of us. Here it is, and we're really looking forward to a very great event tonight with Sony's Melbourne launch of the A9. So we've got some great little hands-on demonstrations for those who are going to attend, and it's going to be an exciting night. So. Thank you so much for joining us in another one of our Michael's Camera YouTube videos. Sean, thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you, and looking forward to working with you tonight. So give us a little likes on Facebook, thumbs ups on YouTubes, all those usual social things. Hit us with some constructive criticism. And if you've got a little story to share with us and you'd like to come and be interviewed, happy to have you. Anyway, take care and we'll see you next time.